Though the Presentation Sisters arrived in Wagga in 1874, it was another 16 years before the boarding school opened. When the first wing of the boarding school was built in 1889 and opened in 1990, the convent was already there. The original foundation stone, set in the side garden, witnesses the date and situation of the first study room, dining room and dormitory above, while the girls still continued classes in Old St Bridget's in the west wing, now the Sisters' Community Room. The present entrance to the boarding school was opened in 1892 when the second section of the residence went up. Several thousand girls have spent many of their formative years in residence here, and their stories, glad and sad, add up to a lot of history. In 1892, classes moved around to St Eugene's from St Bridget's. Now classes were taken along the driveway, where school was carried on until 1938, when once again classes moved, this time to the then new Mt Erin High School, and the former building became entirely residential. Three amateur videos have been recently put together in which ex-students figure, some seen in action and others reminiscing together. We hope you enjoy what follows.
Sitting here in 1990, our minds go back to two young Sydney girls travelling to Wagga to escape from the Japanese threat to Sydneysiders in 1942. It was an adventure. All those new clothes, blankets, sheets, cutlery, even fish knives and forks. What are the highlights of 3 years of boarding school for a 7 and 8-year-old? The trip in the train was long, an all-day affair from Strathfield to Wagga. All the railway refreshment rooms, which were forbidden territory, but those meat pies looked so inviting. Railway fettlers always waved to the passengers and called out for papers and books. We took advantage of these requests to throw our unwanted books and papers out of the windows.
The beautiful grounds of Mt Erin ran down to the railway line and seemed dominated by an enormous bell. This bell was tolled when one of the nuns died and to announce the Angelus. Wagga was the coldest place we had ever known. Some girls had the most painful chilblains on their hands and feet. Rugs had a special use. We wrapped them round the lower part of our body when we walked from one place to another. No heated classrooms or carpet on the floor. Sundays were special days, the days we wore our white blouses with our uniforms. Some Sundays we went on walks up the hill, the seniors leading and the juniors bringing up the rear. And once a term we visited some old family friends in Wagga and had ice cream and chocolate sauce. We were always interested in food. Quinces were part of our diet, stewed for dessert and quince jam for breakfast, all homegrown. There was a strawberry patch, but only visitors had these wonderful fruits. We always longed for food parcels from home, and my sister said it was the only time she'd ever eaten jelly crystals straight from the packet. Once a week we could buy sweets from the school shop, a real treat in wartime.
We made our name on the radio when we starred in The Three Bears. The session opened with this song.
This is 2WG, and we're as happy as can be. How do you do-de-do-de-do-de-do-de-do?
Elocution was part of the curriculum, as was darning on Saturdays in the plantation and chanting new songs.
This time next week, where shall we be? out of the gates of misery. No more Latin, no more French, no more sitting on a hardboard bench, no more tadpoles in my tea, poking googly eyes at me,
etc., etc., for many verses. Nuns from the past come flooding into our minds. Sister Casma, Sister Francesca, ruling the boarding school in her inimitable style. Sister Ambrose looking after the juniors and reading 7 Little Australians or Little Mother Meg before tucking them into bed. Mother de Padsy, who threw sweets down from her balcony to the good darners. Sister Agnes with her talent for writing poetry for birthdays on distinctive yellow paper. And Sister Berkmans puffing up the infirmary stairs with her castor oil and salts.
Although a long way from home, we spent a happy few years in a loving atmosphere with plenty of activities. We learnt to play rounders and vigoro, skip and dance the maypole.
Bishop Hensky, who came to the concerts at the end of the year, was the biggest man I can ever remember meeting. One year we did Toad of Toad Hall, and I played Toad. That was great fun. Our journey down memory lane wouldn't be complete unless we gave you a sample of our talents.
Rabbits. There once was a rabbit who developed the habit of twitching the end of his nose. His sisters and brothers and various others noticed the way that it goes. One clever bunny said, "That's very funny, I'll practice it down in the dell." The rest said, "If he can, I'm positive we can," and they did it remarkably well. And now the world over, where rabbits eat clover and burrow and scratch with their toes, there isn't a rabbit who hasn't the habit of twitching the end of his nose.
That video came to us from Barbara and Patty Hall, who were boarders at Mt Erin in 1942-44. The next section comes from Mr. Meredith's son, who lives at Jamboree. Mr. Meredith was PE teacher in the 40s.
Stan Meredith Sr. rehearsing a section of the Rose Ballet. Wagga Wagga, the place we've been waiting for. Mt Erin High School. A team of rod exercises. I'm sure Betty Hall would have had a hand in teaching some of these girls. More deportment marching by the senior girls. another straight line ballet. Frocking by Betty Hall. When I was teaching at Mt Erin, I would often see this gentleman and the following gentleman working very hard at mowing lawns and repairs.
In 1988, some boarders of the 1917-1920 era spent some hours together in memory lane. An old letter helped them recall. And I've got a letter here from Linda Kellam, the cabinet.
I remember the cabinet.
And this was written by Alice E.D.M. Mary. And it was written in 1922 on the 9th of July.
Good Lord,
And she says, dearest old Linda. And look at all the boarding school news in it.
Yes. Oh, for goodness sake, look at
Oh, yes, is it beautiful?
Do you wanted me to read it to you? It'll start you talking.
Oh, well.
I won't read the bits out that doesn't matter. I'll just read the bits that do matter. Well, Linda, we've been having a really jolly time. On Friday night, the 16th of June, we had a fancy dress ball. Remember the fancy dress balls? Even I remember them in the 30s. And you just ought to have been here. You couldn't compare it with the one we had when you were here. We did things in style. We had a most beautiful tea cakes, etc., from Millinet's.
Yeah.
Millinet's cake place?
Yes, it's a cafe down near the commercial hotel.
Don't say.
They're beautiful cakes.
And tea and coffee, and we charged 2 and 6 to go in.
Spain's was it?
This is another exporter. Mary Hayes.
Molly Hayes.
Molly Hayes.
I was one of the little ones.
Yes, still one of the little
Sister
ones.
Jones.
That's right, yes. Alice, that's good.
Had Isabel left school when Molly came?
Isabel Hayes.
Been here with Molly.
But Annie was here.
And your face is familiar to me.
And now
You must have come to see Annie
I
sometime.
must have, that's right.
Right, I remember Anne.
Are you related to the Hellens here recently?
O'Halloran's.
No, it is.
O'Halloran's,
They're all out.
No, but yes, but there were Hallorans here
Helen,
from
Felicity Halloran.
Yes, they're my pet.
Now they be
Their
related
father
to you.
is their grandfather's my brother.
That's right, then.
Now, wait
Yes,
a
a
minute.
generation of those
they're-
recently went through here.
Felicity Halloran's the
Yes,
one who asked me.
Yeah, that's right. She's they're all the Hellens and
I
Marcus.
know. Well,
Yeah, they've all-
Felicity asked often to me.
It's fairly bright.
And the
Yes,
prize
she's very
winners
clever.
were Joan of Arc,
She's
Molly
one of the
Kelly.
best.
What is that?
That's St Eugene's school badge.
Oh,
I
see.
Day pupils badge. They've gone.
Oh, now what do we see?
We did away with those in about 1938. Because St Eugene's wasn't a school after 1938.
Wasn't it?
It became Mt Erin High School in
I remember
1938. The new building went up.
Yes.
But that can come out of that.
Well, it's over here somewhere, is it, where the paddock used to be?
Yes, over that way where the
Yes.
paddock used to be. That has lots of memories.
Oh, dear, I remember that.
Yes, very different from the Borders badges, wasn't it?
Oh, no, I remember that.
Yes, the boarders in those days was the silver bag.
That's right. And this is
Well, yeah,
another
this one
thing
was a
that's
boiler.
got a long memory.
We only had a
This
couple
again
of
is from
those.
Linda Kellum, and that's one of the original badges from the pockets. And I think you sent me that, didn't you? Alice got me that.
Yeah.
And that's the letter that goes
Oh,
with the
that's
pocket.
nice. We had that on our hat. That's
Just
right,
on
I
the
remember.
blazer.
And that's off the blazer.
And
Yeah,
Claire
we
Terry
all
was
had
the first
those.
one to appear in the
I remember
blazer.
Dolly Jobson is back again this year. She's going to the intermediate again. And so are Birdie and Edna.
Birdie
Dance.
Hudson.
Birdie Dance.
Yes, that'd be Birdie Hudson.
Edna Darling. Edna Darling?
Edna Darling.
Yes, from Young.
The interclass is big this year. I don't know if they're all going for it. Did you hear that Elsie Westendorf was teaching school now?
Remember?
She's teaching at Cox's, Bertha's and Mary's place. And what do you think? She has her hair up. This is the girl who wrote it. No, Alice. Beanie Jackson is back here teaching music. That's your sister.
Yes, that's right.
She came back after last May holidays. I think she'll be staying here until Christmas. Miss Tobin didn't come back this year. Miss Stafford is still here.
Oh, yes.
The baby of the school is 6 years of age. So poor Miss Stafford has a lot to do. But Linda, she's awfully good to the little ones.
Yeah. That's true,
She
too.
was-
wasn't too good to us. We didn't have happy memories of her.
She wasn't too good to the ones
Olive
in charge of them.
Olive McDonough is a boarder, and Mary Thompson from Bowman is a weekly boarder.
Mary Thompson.
Mary used to go to St Mary's last year. No doubt you know her. We have a good few boarders now, over 80.
Yeah.
Hundred
or something.
Queenie, somebody was the 100th boarder when we were there. We got a picnic.
We did, yeah.
Queenie, somebody, forget what her other name was.
Jean Pierce has gone to Rose Bay
Oh,
Convent.
yes, that's right.
That's where Patsy Walsh goes too.
Yes, that's right.
No doubt you know we're having a Queen competition. Nellie Fitz is our Queen. Mona Ferrerio and Vera O'Reilly are the other two.
I remember the O'Reillys.
I forget that part.
Yes. They used to have the store
Nellie
down
Fitz.
town.
You know the old St Mary's shed? Well, that's been pulled down, and a new one has been put further to the left. We had a great old time here while Dr Mannix was in Wagga.
Yes, I remember that.
The Sunday night we gave him a concert. Cassie Heffernan and Marge Schultz are the only two in third year this year. How about that? Only two in third year.
I remember there's only one.
Cassie Heffernan and Marge Schultz are the only two in third year.
That's like our year 11. That's like our present year 11.
A fifth year. Marge was coming as a boarder, but I think she's changed her mind. Cass hasn't much chance of talking and study, has she? No one talks her. Can I interrupt just for a minute? Because I see that picture there. This picture was painted by Sister Ursula Burke
Oh, yes.
and given to Rose Paslow. It has now been given back to us by Rose's nephew, Bill Bellairs of Wagga.
Oh,
That was beautiful. That's the
What
sort
was
of
the
art
name that gave it back?
Rose Paslow.
And who was the...
Bill Bellairs, who was a
Bellairs.
yeah, B-W-L-A-I-R-S. But that's the sort of painting you would have done. when
Oh,
you
it's
were a
beautiful.
kid. Now, where are all the
Work in
ones-
those days was absolutely
Where are all the ones you
beautiful.
got? Well, who would have taught you here? Who was in charge of the boarders? Sister Vincent.
Oh, yes, all the time.
And Sister Agnes. She would have been here.
No, she's not in charge of waters.
But she was here.
Oh, yes.
And who was principal of the school?
Sister John.
Who had the intermediate? Like, who was the chief
Sister
teacher?
John. Yes, she
Sister
had
John. Little John. And she'd had a stroke later
She
on.
had that for the intermediate.
Yes.
Mother Aquinas had the
the
one or two on her left in those days.
Oh, isn't it lovely? All the
This is
things
Rita
we're
had it
remembering.
too.
The opening of the centenary wing was marked by a special mass.
A boarding school is something I was never very enamoured of. I went to boarding school for 4 years and didn't like it at all. but I know it did me a lot of good. But nevertheless, I know that people went to boarding school then, and I meet up with now. We realised that we had established a bond of friendship among those fellow boarders. And you do because living with them most of the year for 24 hours a day. It's a great exercise in fraternal charity, practising that and other virtues. And as I said, the bond of friendship grows up, and you can be very attached to your old school, alma mater. I feel that you here that have come from many miles made great sacrifices to come here. And so when Father Johnson and myself, representing the Bishop, who was unable to be present, and representing many other priests too, because Sunday is the day that we work the hardest, and we've got to be in our own parishes. But I'm pleased personally to do it because well, for one reason, when I came here 32 years ago, and I often said Mass here, boarding school, usually very early in the morning, and I really understand the teachers, the staff, the sisters, and ex-pupils, many of whom I recognise here, being here at the time I was presiding as well. So I want to congratulate just on my own behalf, and then on behalf of the Bishop, the foresight that all of you have had, and coming here, making an effort to be present for the sake.
The foundation stone here on my left carries simply the marking 1889, and it was that wing over there which constituted the boarding school in total for the commencement of school in 1890. What it does not tell us is that it came about at the request of the parents of girls from the surrounding country areas. They wanted a Catholic education for their girls, and in response to their request, the Presentation Sisters have conducted the boarding school for the past 100 years. And we would hope to continue to be involved in this work. The pleasing blend of old and new, particularly in the planning of the office area, and the easy connection of the centenary wing to the existing buildings, are tribute to the gifts and skills of Mr. Ross Moxon, our architect. One of the challenges during the construction of the building was having the girls in residence while the builders were working. Jackhammers, brick dust, mortar and the like, we were not used to, but we were very grateful to the rafter builders and for their workmanship, and also for having the project completed on schedule. Many days we faced the challenge of finding a new way into the boarding school, depending on where the men were working. Together though, I think we would agree that the end result was well worth the inconveniences.
Two things came to mind which I thought might give you a little bit a laugh this morning, and they were grace and appendix. Father Plunkett spoke in his homily this morning of the great changes that have taken place where now the library and science building is. There were wonderful grapevines, a fruit tree, a locust tree, and they were a great source of delight to boarders. They were out of bounds, of course. There was a dear old sister called Sister Finbar who used to be the minder of that garden, and she chased many a boarder. I think sometimes we used to wonder whether we had an effect on her health. We obviously didn't. She lived to her 100th year. She thrived on it, I think. And another story came to mind. On one morning the word was passed around that a certain young lady had been rushed to hospital in the middle of the night with a burst appendix. I don't know, it wasn't until I came to boarding school that I heard that grape seeds can activate often appendix attacks. And each night we used to gather for prayer and lecture we used to call it, where another dynamic lady by the name of Sister Benedicta used to speak to us of the good and the bad of the day. And I can still hear her saying, the moral of the story, girls, is don't take the grapes. It didn't take us long to learn to spit the seeds out, and we survived. I might add that I came here in 1967, working in the boarding school, and we had 6 appendix cases in a fortnight. But it wasn't the race season.
And may I direct just a message to the students of this school concerning the contribution that their parents have made. The history, the almost 100-year history that was referred to earlier of Mt Erin is studded with stories of achievement, stories of determination, and in particular, stories of sacrifice. Sacrifice on the part of the sisters who give their lives, who dedicate their lives to God's work in a place of education, and stories of sacrifices on the part of parents who go without, or mothers who take a job in order to pay school fees. That should always be recognised by the community, and it should always be remembered by the students, particularly when they leave school and they grow up and they realise that they are benefiting from the opportunities given to them at Mt Erin and other similar schools. And so I charge the students of Mt Erin to give thanks for the support, encouragement, and indeed the sacrifices that your parents are making to enable you to attend such a fine school. Ladies and gentlemen, with those words of congratulations to all associated with the development of this very fine project, I now declare the Centenary Boarding House wing officially open.